Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business with me, Richard Cow. Today, we're going to focus on the Conexus conference and what we do next. I'm also going to be sharing an insight into my experiences of that day and then what happened for the day after and the week after and some of the work that I had to put in to cope with some of the emotions that were left over. And it's been an interesting time the last few weeks, just because there's been an element of realizing, I suppose, the impact of having a group like Grow Your Tutoring Business to a full-time job, and the impact of the course, and just generally just being in a space where we can help teachers and tutors grow a business so they can create a life in the way that they want it. And it's a movement. It's not just a one-off course or one-off workshop. It's about creating movement away from something which isn't serving us towards a possible life where we can pick and choose anything we want. This is the thing. Now, I'm going to start with the conference because I feel that we need to shine a light on it, and for a number of reasons. And then I want to share my experience with it. And let's shine a light on the impact that a face-to-face conference has. There's just something different about all being in a same room or same space as like-minded business owners, and in this case also teachers, because there's a shared meaning. There's something deeper there because we've all experienced similar things from the teaching industry, which has led us to become sat down at a table, listening to the same talks, attending the same workshops, wanting to improve ourselves. And we throw that into the mix of being passionate about education. And then Sharon's call to arms at the end. And there was something really moving in that for me, in that she likened what happened over COVID and then with tutors, almost like that Dunkirk spirit, when the government went out and said to everybody, we've got soldiers that need rescuing on the beaches in France. If you've got a boat, you go now and you get across the channel because we need you. We need you to go out there. It's like that call to arms. And look, I'm not saying it's as dangerous, and I'm certainly not comparing it in terms of people risking their lives, but the government put out a call to arms because we knew, and the government knew, that the children and the young people in this country were going to be left, I'm reluctant to say gaps, but they're going or being left behind, but they wouldn't have been where they should have been for their age had COVID not happened and the pandemic not happened. This is all really obvious stuff. So there was a call to arms, and people rallied, and they got together, and they got out there, and they rallied around, and they went to schools as tutors in their own right. And they made a massive difference, and they continue to make a massive difference. This call to arms of suddenly it's changed the way people view tuition, and it's a chance for all of us to step out of that zone of, I'm just a tutor. And by the way, I am guilty of this, to, no, I am a tutor. Yeah. And I help change people's lives. Deep down, I believe that, but I don't know whether I've been living and breathing it out there to other people. And so that call to arms really meant something to me. And there was another outcome at the end of Sharon's call to arms, which was she went around and she kind of pointed out some people in the room, and she got to me, said my name, and people gave me a round of applause. Now, that has never happened before in my life. It's completely brand new. And I'll be honest, I absolutely shrunk away. It was one of those moments where, don't get me wrong, I'm really proud of what's happened over the last couple of years, and then the effort that's gone into creating the community and keeping it in the way it is. I'm really proud of that. But just something being in front of everybody and that happening, it felt uncomfortable. And that's been what I've been working on over the last 2 weeks. And the reason I've left it so long to record this is because I wanted to take as much emotion out of this as I could and really come at it with a logical brain. Now, I'm not saying I'm not emotional, because I am, but I think when you're working through something that's deep inside, like maybe a memory, which is actually what kind of it triggered for me, and some fear. I mean, thinking about Drew Povey's keynote about courage is what really brought it all back up for me. Like, I realized that there was some work need to be done. And well, did I realize? Probably, but it was only when someone else like prodded it that I realized actually this needs to be sorted out. This is because this is going to mean me going forward with the handbrake on, and I don't want that. I want to kind of speed into the future, growing a couple of businesses to the point where I'm really happy with them and they're providing the value that they need for the tutors that need them or the children that come into the tuition business. So what was left? Well, after the evening celebrations, which were absolutely brilliant, making some meaningful connections with other tutors, the next day, traveling home, I phoned my parents and we had a conversation. I was on a 4-hour journey back from the north back down to London, and I was telling my mum and dad about the day and just the kind of things that had happened. And I just got really emotional and just started really crying. This is in front of people on the train as well, which is really embarrassing at that point. But it was quite overwhelming. And I reached out to a couple of people straight away, because there's people who have done, not in the tuition like business world, but in other business, like my business coach and someone else. I was like, look, this has happened to me. This is how I feel. It feels really strange. I don't quite know what to do. I didn't really know how I could handle it. And in that moment, I suppose, in that moment is what I mean. And I don't mind those feelings of being uncomfortable. I know that's how we grow, but it was more about like, okay, this could be something that happens in the future. How can I prepare myself for that? Like, what's the mindset switch? Because we often talk about the mindset in business, and that's fine. And I can see it's about being accepted and also being accepting that people are valuing what we're doing in this particular space, which is amazing, by the way. So I always come back to that kind of humble point of, this is an absolute pleasure to be in this space, to be supporting people, to create the life that they deserve. You know, that is at the heart of why I do what I do and why we have a supportive group in the way that we have it. I would not be sitting here recording something like this if I did not believe in the purpose of this business, to give people access to the business support in a way that makes it affordable, but with the value and the idea that we can change lives along the way. That's really important. So what did these people say on the way back in? First of all, everyone starts with the, oh, congratulations part. Now, I don't want to focus on this bit. The bit I actually want to focus in is the bit that was keeping me stuck, because I think this is what will resonate with lots of you, in that we know what we do is really good. Like, we're really great teachers. There's just something great in a way, our value system, if we stay a full-time teacher or even a part-time teacher, you know, there's just something there that's just telling us this isn't right. And so what is it that keeps us stuck? I mean, we talk about fear. Yeah, of course, fear plays a part. But I actually think fear can be the reason why we make the change, not just the reason why we stay where we are. We can use fear in a really positive way. That's that's kind of at the point where most of us push up from the bottom. Yeah, we've experienced something bad at school. Perhaps we've been asked to leave. Perhaps you've been almost like forced to resign because there's been no other choice. We're at that point where, okay, whether you're scared or not, this thing's going to happen, and now we need to make a decision. So fear can be a useful thing as well as something that will keep us down. So me shrinking away was a form of fear, and I'm super lucky, right, to have built this group. And then to have I'm all about collaboration. So collaborating with people like Sharon Corley, there's Gemma Zoe Smith, there's Risha, there's Samantha McMahon. That I'm really lucky to have these people who when I feel stuck or when something happens, I can just reach out and go, I'm feeling like this. What's your take on it? And Sharon called me or sent me a voice note later on in the week after the conference and said, shall we get together for a bit? And I was like, yeah, I'd love that, because I'd never say no to that. I'd always say yes. And just intuitively, she started talking about emotions aimed at me. So, how emotional were you? And, I expect you've been feeling quite emotional over the last week. And I was like, I don't know how you do it, but yes, that's exactly how I felt. Like, and we explored those feelings and where they came from. And I won't tell you the ins and outs because it is quite private. But safe to say, regressing back through the years, there was a pain point. There was something there that needed to be addressed and reframed. And I got emotional talking about it, and it really did sort of poke that emotional pain point. And even after the fact, even a few hours after, I was still feeling a bit wobbly, and I was tutoring that afternoon, so I held it together for the tuition session. But it made me realize that we all have these things in our life where we would need to go back and identify like where these little blocks are coming from. And it might not be, we talked about money blocks before. This is more of a mindset thing. And actually at the root of that fear was having something taken away. Like someone at that shrinking feeling when people were clapping was more like, yeah, but what if someone at some point comes in and says, this guy isn't really, allowed to do this. Let's take it away from him. And even like I'm saying that from the training and development and coaching side, but even with the tuition business, there's elements of that creeps in. At some point, someone's going to go, no, you're not allowed to do this. What do you think you're doing? And the fear around that drives me forward, but also keeps me not being as good as what I could be, or maybe making the right decisions at the right time. Maybe everything's delayed by 6 to 12 months rather than really going for it. So at the end of this little story, what I'd like you to do is think about what is it, or what things have happened to you in the past that are sat dormant, because this is how I felt about this memory. It's sort of been sat there dormant for a long time that are holding you back, that you're doing. You might even be doing quite well for yourself, but you could be doing better. You might be feeling better. You might be able to make those decisions about life balance choices better if you solved this thing or found it out. And you'll have to find a way to do that. But it led me down a bit of a course, a path, I suppose, over the next coming sort of 6-7 days. And I reached out to somebody who I know who offers EFT, which is the tapping, right? You start with your hand and you go round. I don't know if people do some research on it, because it's quite a magical thing. And we had this at the conference. And her name's Claire Pope Val. She's in the group, and we had a session. And I was like, "Look, I've already done a little bit of work. This is what I'd really like to focus on." And that's what we did. We kind of brought it up. We spoke about it, and again, it's quite a private thing, so I won't go into the details. But safe to say that at the end of the session, which was about an hour long, including like a bit of chat about what we're going to be covering and what we're doing, and along with the chat and the bits in between, like I just felt better at the end of it, and it's something I would definitely do again. So there are strategies in place where you can explore these things in a really safe way, where people will contain what you're feeling and you're going to feel better at the end of it. But guess what? Like, all growth is painful. So sometimes we have to go through these moments of pain to get to where we need to be. So it's been a really interesting 2 weeks or so. And I wanted to share that little journey with you, because I know there'll be people maybe sat there for, it's taken me a couple of weeks, and I know there's still lots more work to do. I don't think this growth ever changed in our business. There's always something to work on. But with this in mind, I feel like I've now acknowledged it enough, and there's a way forward. And I know there's people I can reach out to who understand, because that's also a tricky thing. Running a business, not everybody understands the mindset around it. So when you get stuck and you say these things, they go, well, why don't you just go back to teaching? Or, well, it is your choice to run a business. And so it just gets kind of just shoved back at you rather than solutions. And sometimes you don't even need a solution. You just need to offload, get it off your chest. Don't need advice. You don't need words. You just need to get it out there. And if you're lucky, someone will reframe it back at you in a way that really makes sense, and so you can move forward. But there are strategies. Well, on to my second point, which is kind of linked to this beginning part, which is that struggle, is like acknowledging like feelings of being uncomfortable. And I've met a friend at the weekend. He came out of teaching about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And he started a fishing company basically working with children at risk of exclusion or children who are SEND, but mainly behavioral challenges, because that's his experience. And what he does, he teaches them how to fish. So it's this fishing program. He has a forest school as well. So they have the forest school element. They have a lake where they go and fish at, and he's made a school there. And I haven't connected with him for a while on a business side of stuff. We often keep in contact about a few children we've worked with together and made huge differences in their lives. But from a business sense, we haven't really connected, but we did at the weekend, and he's grown it to be nearly £250,000 turnover, which is just unbelievable. You know, at the start when there was so many worries and so many fears. And in fact, like what I found out the weekend was that actually not a lot of people believed that he could do what he was doing, and everybody was trying to convince him to stay in his job, even though they knew the mental toll it was taking on him. And it doesn't surprise me that it's got to this turnover at all, because I remember talking to him right at the beginning and saying, you know, this has got legs. I mean, just even the environment that he's created around his little school is just, you know, I call it, it is just world class. There's nothing else to call it, really. It's just world class. But the difficulty that he's had, and like many of us will have, there's very few like-minded people in that arena. And so when he goes out and he wants to talk about the growth and the success, it's often met with, I want to say disdain. That might not be the right word, but often met with off-the-cuff comments, which could be quite hurtful, or perhaps people are proud, but they don't quite know how to word it. So it feels like he's almost on his own. But he's built up a £250,000 business in 2 years. That is something to be shouting from the rooftops about. You know, it is just phenomenal. And he knows I feel really proud of him, because being in a similar space, like mentally, leaving education and then creating something on your own, it's not hard. It's a hard thing. So I was talking to him at the weekend about finding a network of people so he can talk about this stuff, because there's so many other worries that go along with it. The thing, like the fear, because I was telling him about what had happened over the last couple of weeks with me. I was saying, like, it feels like at some point, someone's just going to come and pull the rug out from underneath it all and go, you can't do that. What do you think you're doing? And he feels in a similar space, even though financially he's not better off. He could be, but he's putting all the money back into the business, which is quite wise. But financially, he could be taking a high salary. He could be taking dividends out. All those kind of benefits you can get from running a business and a successful business. He could be doing that now. But he's got a good business person on board with him who is sort of creating the business and building it alongside him. And it's just going from strength to strength. But this is for all of us, right? When we're feeling like we're struggling, when we're feeling like we're getting to the point, or perhaps it's not the struggle, it's the, look, I'm having success, but I'm struggling to share that with someone. You want to shout about it, but you haven't got your network of people, not yet anyway. So yeah, that's interesting to me. But when I regress back through my own life, and I'm sat, I'd say it's marginal success right now. Could it be better? 100%. Am I going to work to make it better? Of course I am. But I'm sat here more comfortable now than what I was 2 years ago. More comfortable as in the business is growing, the business turnover is good. I don't have to work as many hours because there are systems in place that take care of it. I still work a lot of hours to try and keep it going and keep the momentum there. But the pressures to do it isn't at the same level as it used to be. The pressure to grow the training, development, and coaching side, I'm feeling, because I want to keep that momentum going. But overall, I'm not having to do as many hours as what I used to 2 to 3 years ago, which it's always been part of the plan. But like any plan, you never know whether it's going to go along the right way, and you have to keep your checkpoints in place and then manage it. If you don't meet the next checkpoint, what are you going to do to kind of catch up to the next one, and so on and so on. But essentially, it has gone and grown along the way. Now, some of that feels uncomfortable because it has got to the point where I don't have to work as much. It has got to a point in my head where it's a different sort of struggle. It's not like it used to be. And that's brand new. And I'm just going to give you a quick bullet point reference and context to the life that I've had. I left home when I was 18, loving mum and dad, got an older sister, lovely older sister, amazing younger brother. And I moved in with my girlfriend, who already had a child, so I had a stepson. And I was at uni, so we didn't have a lot of money. I was working a couple of part-time jobs, and we had benefits to help pay for the flat and all those kind of things happening in the background. But money was scarce, and everyone was working hard and trying to get through a degree when you're still trying to work 20 to 30 hours a week and like have a family life, and I was still trying to play football, all of these things. And then we had another child, we had Olivia, and I left uni. I did my first 2 years, and then I left uni because I started a management training program at Matalan, the retail store. And that was a year-long thing, and I loved it. It was really, I mean, retail in general is not like an industry that fills me with enthusiasm and motivation, but I really enjoyed the management training program. I thought it was really well run. It was high class, and even some of that learning that I did, because I was only 20 at the time, I still carry with that stays with me today. I carry that around with me today. For that to be so long lasting, I feel like that's a real feather in the cap for someone like Matalan. But they are quite well known for their training programs at that level. However, I wasn't very well paid. And I mean, I think I was on about £1,000 a month. And even 20 years ago, that wasn't amazing. And again, we had 2 children. By the time I left Matalan, I was about to have the third one. And then I put this in the group a little while ago. If you haven't, you can research this. But my flat got blown up. And we were really lucky. I was out with my dad, but my mum, my brother, my Katie, Olivia, and Elliot were all at home, and they were just lucky to survive it. That's the only word really that I have. Like, if you've ever seen the pictures, it's horrific. They got out, I don't know how, and largely unscathed, apart from a few cuts and bruises. But someone did die in that gas blast. So to give you kind of like a bit of context around it, it was a super serious thing. But what it did is it made me question where I was heading. It was my Matalan training was about done, about to have the third child, and I didn't really see where retail was going to take me. The money wasn't great. I wasn't filled with motivation and enthusiasm for staying within retail at that point. And so going back to finish the degree was an option. You know, that was on the cards. But I think by the end of the second week after the gas explosion, I'd been enrolled back into the course and had a year left to finish my degree. But that brought around with it other changes. I had to go and get another part-time job. I ended up having like 4 or 5 part-time jobs that year, and some of them I was running concurrently, because there was just no money. So what I'm describing to you now is this feeling of struggle. It was a normal thing, you know, working month to month to pay the bills. Like, you know, we didn't have enough money. There was times I'd have to go down to the council and say, can't pay the rent. I can't even put money on the electric. I can't put money on the gas. I'm worried about paying for the food bill this week. Like, literally going cap in hand and saying, I need some help. I need some financial assistance. And so my early 20s and early time as being a parent was an actual struggle. I don't come from a family who has loads of money, right? So there's not like I can lean on somebody and go, can you just subsidize my life while I get it all sorted? That just wasn't an option. And this continues. I'm not saying it was a constant financial struggle, because there was times when we were okay. We were still living month to month, and there was a bit of disposable income, but I couldn't afford to run a car. I couldn't do those kind of other luxuries in life, which I think some of us take for granted. Oh, I know I certainly have taken for granted now I'm older. But that kind of takes us all the way up till kind of my end of my 20s. And I'd worked for social services. I was working for the local council doing a couple of different jobs, but financially was still quite poor. And time-wise, I was spending quite a lot of time working. And it was just a struggle. And it's a struggle, not just financially, but the fact that by the time I was 30, we had 5 children, and, you know, we had a 3-bedroom house. It was a struggle. And so there's just this idea of, in my mind, like, there's always a struggle. There's always a struggle. You've always got to fight. You've always got to work. You've got to work really hard to get yourself out of it. And you can see that my mindset was, if you work hard, if you work hard, if you work hard, maybe you'll get an opportunity. But even if you're given an opportunity, it probably means you're going to have to work harder and work hard. And that's it. And you're going to struggle. And that was always the thing. So for me to be sitting here now and saying, actually, I don't have to work as hard as what I did, it feels uncomfortable. And when someone mentions your name and people give you a round of applause, it feels uncomfortable, because it's almost like an acknowledgement that all that hard work's paid off. But yet I feel like I've got to work hard. And I feel like I've got to have that struggle. Otherwise, something doesn't feel right. And it's stepping away from that. It's reframing it. It's putting it in a different lane for myself. And now I know this. Now it's up to me to make those changes. And in the same way, now you know this, it's up to you to go and find out what your story is, so that you can reframe it. So you can become the best person you can be. So you can create the life that you deserve. And this is all heartfelt, because I believe we all have the ability to do these things. And some of you, it might lead you back to the classroom. Some of you, it might keep you in the classroom, but it might keep you there with a different purpose. It might keep you there so that you can make changes from within. For others, it's going to mean stepping away from that fear into a new fear. You know, I'm not going to say running a business is easy, because it isn't. I'm not going to say like working towards your dream goal is easy, because it's not. It can be done, though. I mean, that famous saying of, you know, everything's hard, you just got to choose your hard. There are elements of truth to that, but there's also a lot of control in there as well. Like, if you want to grow a business and you want to have some freedom, there are going to be some sacrifices along the way. Of course there are, but it'll be worth it if in 5 years' time you can say, I only work 15 hours a week and I'm making more than what I was earning as a teacher. In fact, now I'm employing people so that they can leave teaching. So that's the end of this. And I know it's split into some sections, and it kind of jumps to that around a little bit, but that's been the journey over the last 2 weeks. I mean, a huge thanks to Sharon, huge thanks to Claire, because between the pair of you, I mean, doing the work with Sharon really unlocked something for me. And it helped me reframe what I was feeling. And then doing the work with Claire to go a bit deeper through the tapping. And I recommend this, definitely recommend this. It just took it a step further, and I felt way less anxious at the end. And it helped with the reframing as well. It helped me just be a bit kinder to myself, which is what I advise everybody else to do anyway, but often don't do it for myself. Just be kind on yourself. Like, some of this stuff, yeah, it's brand new. Of course it's going to feel uncomfortable, but that's okay. So thank you if you've stayed with me through the whole podcast. Well done, because I know that I do talk probably a little bit too much, but it comes from the heart. I wrote some bullet points and for myself to keep me on track, but essentially it's about accepting the struggle, accepting that we can leave these things behind. I do believe, like with fear, it's about acknowledging what you're running away from. Don't just be running away from something. Know where you're going to next. It's important to have something to run away from. I think that is something that I really believe in, but you do need to know where you're going, which is why the course exists, because it gives you strategy and accountability. So that's enough from me. Until the next time, I'll speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.